what's up, fish? This is Quick Query Quiz. Let's get started.
February 2024. Unfortunately, Carl Weathers passes away. He was an athlete, director, father, and actor, most notably as Combat Carl in Toy Story, Apollo Creed in Rocky, Sergeant Jericho Jackson in Action Jackson, and Chief Hampton Forbes and In the Heat of the Night. On February 1st, John Stuart Rock becomes the first African American to practice law. Before the U.S. Supreme Court in 1865, on February 2nd, Ernest Everett Just becomes the first recipient of the NAACP Spingarn Medal in 1915. This award is given to persons that display the greatest service to his or her race. On February 3rd, John Mercer Lanston speaks at the Alabama Capitol as the U.S. Congressman in 1868. On February 3rd, 1990, on season for episode 16, The Wedding, Thelma and Reuben finally get married, but Reuben has to be the groom and the officiant. Please keep in mind that the theme song Shine on Me is sung by Vanessa Bell Armstrong.
Hit it! I finally recorded it, y'all. Turn on the light.
On February 3rd, 2011, the first episode of Esau Ray's Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl premieres. On February 4th, Mrs. Rosa Parks was born in 1913. On February 5th, Robert Bob Douglas becomes the first African American elected into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 1972. On February 6th, unfortunately, Arthur Ashe passes away in 1993. He was the first African American tennis player to win the U.S. National Amateur Singles Competition and the first African American U.S. Davis Cup team. Also, on February 6th, Robert Townsend was born. He's a producer, actor, and director that has created so many classics to include The Parenthood, Meteor Man, Baps, Hollywood Shuffle, and The Five Heartbeats. On February 7th, Frederick Douglass and the African American delegates go to see President Andrew Johnson at the White House in 1867. On February 8th, Joe Black is born in 1924. He is the first African American baseball pitcher to win the World Series game. On February 8th, 2024, Rolling Stone magazine releases the interview with RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan. They discuss Wu-Tang being the first hip-hop act to have a Las Vegas residency. On February 9th, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and President Lyndon Johnson finally meet in 1965 at the White House. On February 9th, Alice Walker is born. She is a writer and poet, but is most notable for writing You Can't Keep a Good Woman Down and The Color Purple. On February 10th, unfortunately, Alex Haley passes away in 1992. He was the creator of Roots, Queen, Mama Flora's Family, and much more. On February 11th, unfortunately, Charles Langford passes away in 2007. He was the lawyer of Mrs. Rosa Parks during the Montgomery bus boycott. On February 11th, Usher Raymond was the first independent artist to perform at the Super Bowl 2024. On February 11, 2004, The Chappelle Show airs The Love Contract and the True Hollywood Story, featuring the story about Rick James.
Oh yeah, and for the girl backstage, and for that girl backstage, make it perfectly clear. Never mind who you thought I was. I'm Rick James, bitch.
On February 12th, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, was founded in 1909. On February 13th, Absalom Jones passes away in 1818. He was the first African-American Protestant minister. On February 13th, 2000, Sally Hemings' An American Scandal premieres. She was one of Thomas Jefferson's slaves and the sister of Thomas Jefferson's wife while enslaved. Thomas Jefferson fathered her children. On February 14th, 2024, the Bob Marley biopic premieres. On February 14th, the first episode of Alex Haley's Queen aired in 1993. This was another installment about Haley's discovered lineage.
And don't call me crazy neither. Mom! You go crying for your mammy. Get out of here. She hit me.
What's going on, Tommy?
On February 14th, in 1760, Richard Allen was born. He was the founder of the Methodist Episcopal Church. On February 15th, Henry Lewis became the first African-American conductor of a major American orchestra in 1968. On February 15th, 2024, Netflix premieres The Vince Staples Show. On February 15th, 1986, Mary plans her parents' 50th wedding anniversary on 2/27. Also on February 15th, Lynn Whitfield was born. She is an esteemed actress that has had a number of impactful roles to include Josephine Baker, Sophie in Sophie and The Moon Hanger, Seal in The Women of Brewster Place, and Brandy Webb in A Thin Line Between Love and Hate.
Little mama's boy.
And you better believe it, I will bust your head wide open. You don't come around here harassing me. And don't nobody mess with my baby. Nobody.
On February 16th, Frederick Douglass is appointed the president of the Freeman's Bank and Trust in 1874. On February 16th, 2015, the TV miniseries The Book of Negroes premieres in the United States. On February 17th, they finally hang Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s portrait in the Georgia Capitol in 1974. On February 18th, Black Panther was released in theaters in 2018. The story entails the aftermath that is faced after the Black Panther's father is killed, and he must now reign and maintain the country's safety. On February 18th, the Quakers finally formally protest slavery in 1688. On February 19th, George Bridgetower finally makes his London debut in 1790. He was a violin virtuoso and an inspiration to Beethoven. On February 20th, unfortunately, Frederick Douglass passes away in 1895. On February 20th, 1930, Robert Lee Williams II was born. He was the psychologist that created ebonics, a portmanteau of the words ebony and phonics. He understood that standardized testing was used to segregate black and white students into superior and inferior groups. By his understanding, Standardized test did not test a person's intelligence, but instead tested cultural difference. For that reason, many black students often fail the standardized test, not due to a lack of intelligence, but due to the lack of cultural awareness. Robert Lee Williams II created the Black Intelligence Test of Cultural Homogeneity to prove the cultural differences in races. This test demonstrated the cultural differences between black and white students that are present, as well as prove that standardized tests fail to provide evidence of intelligence. Standardized tests instead show a lack of cultural interpretations. Due to his stride in dismantling the standard test requirements, on December 18, 1996, Ebonics became the official language for over 28,000 African American students in Oakland, California. Also on February 20, 2024, BET.com reports that Frankie Beverly will no longer be the lead singer of Maze. He is retiring after being in the legendary group since 1970. On February 20th, Yahoo Entertainment reports that Beyoncé has her healthy hairline products to launch. She later dominates the country music charts. On February 21st, YouTube's The Breakfast Club airs the Mario and Mandela Van Peebles episode about their independent film called Outlaw Posse. On February 21st, unfortunately, Malcolm X was assassinated in 1965 in front of his pregnant wife, children, and several other witnesses. On February 22nd, the Salem Female Anti-Slavery Society is founded in 1832. On February 22, 2020, for CNN.com reports AIDS activist passes away. Hidea Broadbent was born HIV positive and became an outspoken activist for children living with HIV and AIDS. On February 23rd, unfortunately, William Edward Burgard Du Bois passes away in 1868. He was a scholar and one of the founding members of the NAACP. On February 24th, in 1864, Rebecca Lee Crumpler becomes the first African-American woman to earn an MD. On February 24th, Tamron Hall becomes the first African-American woman to co-anchor The Today Show. On February 25th, Hiram Revels was seated as the first African-American in the U.S. Senate in 1870, representing Mississippi. On February 25th, outspoken Flint, Michigan councilman Eric Mays dies at age 65. On February 26, Andrew Bremer is appointed as the first African-American governor of the Federal Reserve Bank in 1966. On February 27, Charlotte E. Ray becomes the first African-American lawyer in 1872. On February 28, President George Washington finally answers Phyllis Wheatley's letter. On February 29, 2024, Fox 19 reports that Detroit native Jessica Nabongo is the first black woman to travel to all 195 countries. On February 29th, cast of A Different World reunites after 35 years on Today.com. They are touring HBCU campuses to maintain their impact. On February 29th, Hattie McDaniel becomes the first African American to win an Academy Award for her role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind in 1940.
You've been brave so long, Miss Scarlett. You just gotta go on being brave. Think about your Paul like he used to be.
I can't think about Paul. Can't think of anything but that $300.
Ain't no good thinking about that, Miss Scarlett. Ain't nobody got that much money. Nobody but Yankees and scalawags got that much money now.